Okay, so in the yesterday's class, very good morning to all. So in the yesterday's class, we started with the meanings of the important terminologies, that is function call and function declaration. So function call is nothing but simply using the function name followed by the list of actual parameters or the arguments, whatever it can be. So what is the meaning of this actual parameters, formal parameters, we will see now. Okay, and then in the evening session we will take up the programming exercises on it, so that it will be very much clear to you by the end of the day. Okay, and we also saw how the function is going to be called by the calling function. So in most of the cases, as we have observed, main is going to be your calling function actually. So in the example also we have seen how the function has been called by the calling function, that is main. So in this we have taken y is equal to multiply of 10 comma 5, that is nothing but your function call actually. So what is the main objective of that function? It has to perform the multiplication of two numbers actually. Okay, so once the function has been called along with its actual parameters 10 and 5, the value is going to be copied to the parameters which is used by the function, whatever we are going to write. Okay, so x is going to take the value 10 and y is going to take the value 5, and we have also declared one local variable. That means its usage is going to be restricted to that particular function. That's why we call that term as local variable. So there we are going to perform the multiplication operation by writing the statement p is equal to x into y, where x is equal to 10 and y is equal to 5. So after the performing of multiplication operation, the result is going to be obtained. That result is nothing but your return value. That return value is going to be stored in the variable which we have declared, that is y is equal to mul of 10 comma 5. So that is how the function is going to work. Understand? So after that, we have already seen some variations in the function call for how it can be done. Best examples are multiplication of m comma 5, where the value of m is going to be given by the user. Multiplication of 10 comma n is also given by the user. And one compound expression we have seen, that is multiplication of m plus 5 comma 10. And see here, one more variation I just forgot to explain in the class. Multiplication of 10 comma multiplication of m comma n. So this is where the important concept lies. So multiplication is first the outer function. In that outer function, one more inner function is there, that is one more multiply of m comma n. That concept is nothing but nesting of function. That means a function which is present inside the function, that is nothing but nested function, which we are going to see in the next upcoming slides. Okay, next we also saw the importance of function declaration. That means however, any ordinary variable, all the functions in the C programs has to be declared before they are invoked. So that function declaration basically contains 4 important parameters. First one is function type, function name, the parameter list, and the semicolon. So that those 4 parts or the constituent elements, they can be embedded or coded in the format of like this: function type, function name. In the braces we are going to list the parameters. For example, int multiply of int m comma int n. So that is nothing but your function prototype. Here m and n are integers, and the return type or the data type of this function multiply is your int. One more variation we can able to observe, that is int mul of int comma int. That is also possible. So if there is no need of taking any parameters, or the function does not take any parameters, its prototype can be written as void display of void. So instead of even also we can skip that, writing the void also. That is also possible, no problem. Okay, so how it is possible we will see in the programming sessions that we are going to see in the evening session. And then we are having 2 types of declarations in the program basically. First one is the global prototype and the local prototype. As the name indicates, global prototype is nothing but the function declaration. It can be used throughout the program. Throughout the program we can able to use that particular function declaration. So that's why it is called as global prototype. Local prototype is nothing but we can able to place that function definition in the local declarations itself. For example, I have written a function body in the let us consider a situation. I have written a program with main function. In the main function, if I keep that function declaration and restrict its usage only to the main, then it becomes a local prototype. Okay, in the main, once the main function is called, that the control comes to that function, whatever we have written in that local part. So thereby the execution is going to takes place. Okay, so that region where we are going to place that function is nothing but the scope actually. Okay, scope is nothing but the region where we are going to place. So if it is placed outside the main, that means it can be accessible throughout the program. That is nothing but the global prototype. If it is restricted its usage only to that particular part of the program, we will call it as a local prototype. Okay, so most of the programming, good programming style encourages the prototypes to be in the global declaration section before the main. Okay, so one that important thing you should remember. Next important concept is the parameters. Please write down this heading, very, very important, parameters. Parameters are nothing but, we can also coin as the word called as arguments. Parameters are nothing but the arguments. Those arguments or the parameters, it can be used in the following three places basically. First one is in the declaration, that is nothing but the function prototype, as well as in the function call. Function call, if you want to call that function or invoke that function, you can use the parameters. In the function definition, that is if you are writing the function function prototype or function definition or the function call, whatever function definition or the function declaration, we can use that parameter list also. Okay, three important parts the parameters can be used. First one is in the function prototype or the function declaration. In the function call, when the time to comes to invoke that particular function, and in the function definition. Okay, so now in the parameters we have basically two types. First one is the formal parameters and the actual parameters. There are two types of parameters. Please write down formal parameters and actual parameters. So now let us see what exactly is this formal parameters and actual parameters. Formal parameters are nothing but the parameters used in the function prototype and in the function definition. Okay, this is very, very important part actually. The parameters, I will underline the statement, which is used in the prototype. The prototype is nothing but in the function declaration, during the time of declaration, and in the function definition. And in the function definition, if you are using those parameters, then they are considered as formal parameters. They are considered as formal parameters. I repeat the definition once again. Don't get confused. The parameters which are used in the prototypes, the function prototypes, and in the function definition, they are nothing but the formal parameters. If the parameters, if they are used in the function call, that means at the time of invocation, and not in the, sorry, not during, if you are using those parameters in the invocation, they are nothing but the actual parameters. Okay, formal parameters are nothing but the parameters used in prototypes and function definitions. But the actual parameters, they are used in the function calls. That is the major difference between the formal parameters and the actual parameters. And actual parameters, it can be either simple constants, variables, or expressions. Understand? It can be either a simple constant, a variable, or an expression. But one more important thing you should remember, the formal and the actual parameters must match exactly in the type, order, and number. For example, I have taken two formal parameters to perform a function to add two numbers. Okay, int add of, int comma int, I have taken in the function declaration. What are those int and int? They are nothing but your formal parameters. They are nothing but the formal parameters. In the function call, I have taken y is equal to add of A comma B. Y is equal to add of A comma B. That is nothing but your actual parameters. They are nothing but your actual parameters. So how many parameters are there? 2 in the formal parameters. How many are there in the actual parameters? 2. So there is a match. Thereby, first int is going to be taken by A. Second int is going to be taken by B. Okay. There should be exact match in the type, order and number. However, there are no restriction for the usage of names. If a name code, that does not necessary for them. Okay, so how it is possible? In the evening session, we will take up the example for this. Then there will be more concept will be crystal clear. Okay, so one thing you should remember: the parameters used in the function prototype and the function definition becomes the formal parameters. Those parameters, if you are using in the function call, they are called as the actual parameters. And the rule of thumb is that the type, order and number should exactly match with the formal parameters and the actual parameters. That is very, very, very important. Okay, so if there is a mismatch, then the the compiler is going to throw a warning. Okay, so that's how the parameters are very, very important in any function aspect. Understand, sir? So this is regarding your parameter concept. 2 types: formal parameters and actual parameters. So where it can be used? In the function declaration, in the function call, or either in the function definition. In either any of the 3 places, we can able to use these arguments or the parameters. Okay, so that is regarding this one. Next is very, very important concept, the category of user-defined functions. The categories of user-defined functions. Okay, please write this question. In the exam, they are going to ask like this: explain the categories of user-defined functions. Explain the categories of user-defined functions with an example program. Explain the categories of user-defined functions along with the example program. Okay, so now we are going to list the category of functions. In the evening session, I will take up the programs on these individual categories and I will explain how the control will flow from one calling function to the called function. Okay, so now we will list all the categories and in the evening session, we will take up the programs on these ones. So thereby more crystal clear concept will be obtained. Okay, so now let us see the important categories of user-defined functions. Basically, these user-defined functions has been categorized depending upon the return values. Okay, as I was discussing in the return values and their importance, a function may return or may not return a value to the main function. Okay, so if so, we have categorized these user-defined functions into the following types. Depending upon the function, it will return a value or not. Okay, so if so, the function may belong to any one of the following categories. So what is the first category? It is very, very simple. Function with no arguments and no return values. This function, it will not accept any arguments and it will not return any values also. Okay, so that is the first category of user-defined function. Function with no argument and no return value. Second category, function with arguments but no return values. That means function is going to accept the formal parameters and it will not return any of the values upon its successful execution. That is the second category. Functions with arguments and no return values. Function will accept the arguments from the main function and it will not return any of the return value upon its successful execution. That is the second category. Third one is the best one. Function with arguments and one return value. Function with arguments but returns the value. Okay, that means the function, it is going to accept the parameters from the main function and upon its successful execution, it is going to return the particular value. Upon its successful completion, it is going to return the value. That is the third condition. Fourth condition is function with no arguments but returns a value. Function with no arguments but it returns a value. That means function will not accept any arguments from the main function, but it is going to return the value. But it is going to return the value. That is the fourth category. The last one, which we will not include, that is function with returning multiple return values. Function with returning multiple return values. Okay, so 4 important categories we are going to discuss. First one is function with no arguments and no return value. Second one is function with arguments and no return value. Third one is function with arguments and with return value. Fourth one is function with no arguments but returns a value. Very, very important. These 4 categories of user defined functions. How it has been categorized means depending upon the return value, it is going to return or may not return. It is going to be categorized in any one of the following types. Understand? So this is regarding the categories of functions which I have explained in brief. With programs, I'm going to explain in detail in the evening sessions. Okay, so for this, programs are very, very important. So that's why I will take up in the evening session. So understood with the categories of functions. I hope there is no confusion with the names. So please practice the names of these categories and don't get confused by right. Okay, so next one we will take up one more important concept, that is nesting of functions. Nesting of functions. I told in the function declaration, in the function call, one value, that is multiply of 10 comma multiply of n comma 1. That is an example of nested function I told. So here also C permits the concept of nesting of functions. So we have seen the concept of nested for loops in the second module, and nested if-else statement. Correct, right? That means an if-else statement present within another if-else statement. That is nothing but the nested if-else statement. Nested for loop is nothing but a for loop present within another for loop, that we have already seen in the decision making and control statements. The major application of nested for loop came in the usage of two-dimensional arrays for that concept. And here also we can able to nest a function with another function also. That is also possible in C. That concept is called as the nested function. That means main function, that is the calling function, it is going to call function number 1. Let us consider that function number 1. It is going to call one more function, that is function number 2, and the list goes on increasing, and the list goes on increasing. But there is no limit how the functions are deeply nested. I can able to include n number of functions in the nesting concept. There is no limit of how much the function has to be added. All the compilers, they are going to support this nesting of functions. For example, let us consider this one. Multiplication of 5 comma 2 comma 6. How this is going to work? Let us see. First, in this, the calling function is your main. Once the control comes to this particular execution, multiply of 5 comma 2 comma 6. First, inner function is going to be executed. First, inner function is going to be executed. That is multiply of 5 comma 2. What is the result of multiply of 5 comma 2? It is 10. Okay, so it is 10. Inner function execution has been completed. Next, once again, multiply of 10 comma 6 is going to be called. The outer function, it is going to be executed. So then what will be the final result? It is 60. That means 5 into 2 was 10. Next, the result was taken for outer function, multiply of 10 comma 6. That means multiply of 10 comma 6 is the 60. Final result is 16. So that is how nesting of functions will take place. Okay. So one more example in the evening session I will take place, that is how to find out the ratio of 3 numbers. How to find out the ratio of 3 numbers. Here we have included 3 important functions. In brief, I will explain how this program is going to work. After typing the function, we will come to more clear. So here we are going to call 3 important functions, that is main, ratio and difference. To find out the ratio of three numbers, we are using the formula A divided by B minus C. Okay, ratio itself is a function, and then we are performing the subtraction operation, subtract of B comma C. Okay, so three functions has been called here. Thereby, the concept of nesting is coming to picture. Understand? So that is how the nesting of functions will be working. That means a function present within another function. Okay, first inner function call is going to be invoked, and that is going to complete its execution, and the result will be taken to the outer function, and that is also going to complete its execution. Final, the return value is going to be obtained. Okay, that is how nesting functions will work. Next one is recursion. That is a separate concept which we are going to take later, because here also we are going to go with many important programs for the recursion. Okay, I'll tell in a brief fashion how to define a recursion. If a function call which is calling itself, a function which is calling itself is nothing but recursion basically. Okay, if a function, if it is repeatedly calling its name again and again, then we are going to call this word called as recursion basically. Observe this program, main. Okay, main is the function, and we have written one printf statement. This is an example of recursion. Okay, so once the main is going to be executed, this is an example of recursion, that our printf statement will be executed. Later, once again main function is called. Once again main function is called. So once again the control moves back to the main, and then one more time the printf statement is going to be executed. This is an example of recursion. How many times this is going to be executed? We don't know. We don't know. That means the function is calling again and again itself. That is why it is called as recursion. It is nothing but the process of chaining. The process of chaining actually. Chain by chain reaction is going to take place in the case of recursion. Okay. So there is a difference between recursion and iteration. Okay, recursion and iteration, though it sounds similar, there are huge number of differences between them. Okay, so recursion is basically, it is a special type of nested function where the function calls itself. But in the nested function, two or more different types of functions has been called. But here, only that particular one function it is calling again and again itself. That is why it is called as recursion. How it exactly happens, you will see in the later classes. Basically, there are two types of recursion. First one is direct recursion and indirect recursion. What is the direct recursion? Indirect recursion, we will see when we take up the programming exercises on this session called as recursion. Okay. Next one is very important concept, that is how to pass an array and a string to the function as an argument. Okay, so till now we have seen how to pass only a single variable or a single expression as an argument to the function. But how to pass an entire array to the function as an argument? For this we have a syntax. So what is the syntax means? Simply call the array along with the number of terms or the size, that's all. Okay, no need of mentioning the size that is present in the square brackets. I'll repeat once again. To pass an array as an argument to the function, only mention the name of the array, not its argument, not its size actually, not its size, but simply represent along with the number of elements. Okay, that is how we can able to perform, we can able to send an array as an argument to the function. So for example, largest of a comma n. Here, largest is the function which is going to perform how to find out the largest element in an array, element by element. What are the parameters for this function? A, that is nothing but your array along with its number of elements. That is the size. In the function call that can be done. Once you are writing the function header or the function prototype, this has to be followed basically. Okay, so what is the return type of the name function name largest? It is float. what is the data type of the array? It is float, and size it cannot be float, so that's why we have taken it as int. So this is how the syntax is going to look like when you are writing the function prototype to pass an array as an argument. This is the syntax, or this is an example you need to follow to invoke a function or to call a function with an array as an argument. So observe the differences very carefully. So when we take up the programming exercise on how to write a function for the binary search and linear search, I will explain bit more clear. So till now, you please understand the concept like this, how to pass an array as an argument. Similarly, we can also able to pass the strings to the function like this, whatever we have done for the arrays. Okay, so because strings are nothing but the character arrays, that's all. So the rules remains same for the rules whatever we have followed for the numerical arrays. Understand? So that is how we can able to pass an array and as a string as an argument or a parameter to the functions. Understand? Yes. Next one is very most important concept, pass by value and pass by reference. So please write down the question like this. Explain the techniques to pass the data from one function to another. Or you can write like this the question. Explain the parameter passing techniques. Explain the parameter passing techniques along with the example. Explain the parameter passing techniques along with the example. Okay. So now I'll explain only the brief, in a brief fashion, that is what are the two types of parameter passing techniques. In the evening session, once we take up the programs, it will be more clear to you. Basically, if you want to pass the argument or the data from one function to another function, from the calling function to the called function, then that process is nothing but the parameter passing methods. That means, I will repeat once again, the technique or the process used to pass the data or the arguments from one function to another function. That one function to another function is nothing but from calling function to the called function. Okay, that is nothing but the parameter passing method. So what are the two types of parameter passing methods? That is your two methods are there. That is, first one is pass by value, which is also called as call by value, pass by value or call by value, pass by reference or pass by pointers or call by pointers. So in this module, we are going to learn pass by value or call by value. In the next module, that is in the 5th module, we have a separate chapter called as pointers. In that pointers chapter, we are going to learn what is this pass by pointers or pass by reference. Okay, so there are two types of parameter passing methods. First one is pass by value or call by value. Next one is pass by pointers or call by pointers. So in the evening session, let us see an example program for this pass by value by taking an example of swapping of two numbers. So this is the same program we are going to write once again, and I will explain. Understand? So next method is pass by pointers or pass by reference, which we are going to see in the next chapter, that is in the pointers in detail. Understand? So this is regarding your parameter passing methods, the nested of functions, brief meaning of recursion, and the different types of parameters, formal parameters and actual parameters. So next we have the scope, visibility, and lifetime of variables. So after the completion of the programming session, I will take up this scope, visibility, and lifetime of variables. So after that, we will start with the recursion. Some example programs on the recursion we are going to do that. Okay. So in the next session, we will take up this scope, visibility, and lifetime of the variables and their types: automatic variables, external variables, static variables, and finally we have register variables. Okay, and then we will also see what exactly is the meaning of scope of a variable, visibility of the variable, and then its lifetime. Understand? So in the evening session, we are going to start with the programs, and then we will take up the recursion concept, and thereby we are going to complete the chapter. Okay. So now I hope so. The three important concepts is not confusing you anything. So in the next session, we will take up the programs on all these. So we are going to stop the class. Okay.